everybody, so today I'm going to talk to you about the International Festival of the Arts at Epcot. Now this is a relatively new festival at Epcot. It follows on from the success of Festival of the Holidays, the Food and Wine Festival and the Flower and Garden Festival. It first started in 2007, so this is the third year that they have been doing it. It runs this year from the 18th of January until the 25th of February, so there's still a little time left to go on it. I actually only got to see it on the first day because the first day was my last full day in the parks, the 18th of January. I flew home on the 19th. So whereas with Food and Wine I would normally arrive in the middle, or the same with Flower and Garden, I would normally arrive in the middle and then I would have a couple of days to experience all of the food and all of the activities and stuff that was going on. On this occasion I had to cram it all into one day. The festival comprises of, as you would expect from an Epcot festival, food kiosks. Now there aren't as many kiosks as there are during the other festivals. It's very much centred on the World Showcase in terms of kiosks, and there are not additional countries. So whereas in Food and Wine you would have lots and lots of different countries doing lots of extra food, there's just one or two, not every country has them. There are activities to do, so they have the Figment treasure hunt, like the Easter egg extravaganza or the hide and squeak for Remy. There are less, I think. The hide and squeak I'm pretty sure went into Future World, whereas the Figment one this time was only in the World Showcase. And with that you have to go around and you have to discover famous paintings in the pavilions which have Figment in them. He's replaced, if there's a character in the picture he'll have replaced Figment, and you'll learn a little bit about the artist, which will be an artist from the country that the painting is in. They also have a paint by numbers banner, which is a massive banner all the way along between the two ports of entry shops, and you get given a colour and you get told which number to paint and then you go and paint the numbers. I was going to do this, I had every intention of doing it. The first time I walked past it, it was just opening up. It hadn't actually opened for people to do it yet. There was about 5 minutes to go, and I wanted to do it after a few people had had a go. And then by the time I remembered I was going to do it, it had closed because it shuts at 5 o'clock. So that's something to bear in mind, that activity I think was only open between 11 and 5. So if you want to go and do the paint by numbers, you need to make sure that you are at the front of World Showcase at the right time in order to do that. You've got the Festival Centre, which always used to be in the Wonders of Life Pavilion between Mission Space and the Universe of Energy, but basically now it is over in the Odyssey restaurant, where they did have some food and wine offerings, and they did have stuff during Epcot's 35th anniversary, but now they've completely renovated. It used to have a sunken or a raised floor and a stage. I can't remember whether it was sunken or raised, but there was definitely different levels inside the restaurant. They've levelled it out, so it's just one level. It's like one big room now. They've got a stage up there and they have seminars. So they've got rows and rows of seats set out with tables, because they have people coming in, they have speakers doing presentations, and they also have the Art of Animation Academy, the drawing where they teach you to draw a character and stuff. They also do, I think it's at Port Orleans, I'm not sure if it's at other resorts as well, but they also have those painting classes where you can go along and they teach you how to paint a canvas, and then you get to keep your canvas afterwards. But inside the Odyssey you will also find a bar where you can buy food. I bought the Figment puzzle from in there, but you also get the Pop-Tarts, and there is some popcorn and stuff in there as well. And they also have the main merchandise shop. Now I went in here because I thought they would have the magic bands and the pass holder pins and t-shirts, and it used to be that you could only buy them in the pavilion when it was in the Wonders of Life pavilion. So I joined a really long line, not wanting to buy anything else, had to queue up to the front to get a magic band and a pin, and then I went round to one of the little pop-up shops which was just at the port of entry, and they actually had the magic bands in and the pins in there as well. The magic bands were limited to 1,000. I did get one. It's really cool, and apparently by about midday they'd sold about 700 of them, so pretty much that was a first day purchase. If you hadn't been there on the first day, then they wouldn't have had any magic bands left. The pass holder merchandise was disappointing. I thought it was quite ugly, to be honest, considering it was Festival of the Arts and all of the other merchandise was really, really colourful, or figment orientated rainbows. It was just meh. It just looked like somebody had put something together on clip art and gone, that'll do. So I didn't actually buy the pass holder t-shirt, I bought the regular t-shirt instead because I thought it was much, much nicer. While I was in the Odyssey restaurant, I got to listen to one of the presentations, which was absolutely brilliant. The guy was talking about sparks of imagination and finding creativity in everything around you, and he asked people how creative they thought they were, or if they thought they were creative or not, and you know, people didn't put their hands up. And he said, well, how many of you have taken your phone out and taken pictures whilst you've been here? And everybody put their hand up. And he said, well, how many are you going to put filters on them? And the, you know, hands. And he was just talking about how anything that we do, like nobody else is going to take that exact picture. It might be a similar picture, but you won't have that bird there, that cloud won't be there, that blade of grass won't be like that. And just talking about how actually, even though you might not think you're creative, you actually are creative, because all of these little things, the thing that caused you to stop to take that picture was a spark of imagination, a little figment, basically. I really enjoyed it, not just because his whole presentation was based around the power of imagination and it had Dreamfinder and figment clips in it. It was really, really interesting. As a bit of an amateur photographer, you know, and obviously filmmaker, I found that really, really interesting to listen to. They also have the Broadway shows. So in the America Garden Theatre they have performances from actors and actresses, singers performing Broadway hits. I heard someone crooning out Frozen as I walked past. I didn't stop to watch because it was, I think it was a 45-minute show, so it was quite a long show when I only had a day to experience everything that was going on in the festival. And bearing in mind the majority of the festival is centred around World Showcase, nothing was open for it before 11 AM, so you only had 10 hours to experience everything. And okay, yeah, that sounds like a lot of time, but when you're walking around World Showcase, you're eating food, you're doing experiences as well, you're doing the map, the treasure map thing, it does actually take up quite a lot of time. And then around World Showcase they have pop-up stalls where they have artists who are selling their art, and some of it is absolutely beautiful. 99% of it is Disney themed art. It's art you will probably have seen in the Art of Disney in Epcot or in the art shop in Disney Springs. I am a sucker for Disney art. I would have bought about 75% of it if I could. There were some really, really nice pieces. So you can also walk around World Showcase and speak to the artists. They'll be there and you can buy some art and take some art home as well. As with all of the festivals, there is a passport that you get which shows you all of the offerings that are available. It has information about the seminars, about the Broadway shows, about the performers. They have artists that do come and you can meet the artists on, they're not all there all the time, so if they're not there all the time and they have specific, I don't know, showings, is that the right word? You can find out when your favourite artist is going to be around. And then they have the sticker book passport thing like they do for the Food and Wine Festival, so you can complete that as you go around as well. I had a lady ask me what I was filling in when we were sitting waiting for Mulan, so I explained it was the passport for the food, and you could choose everything you wanted and then you put the stickers in for everything that you've been to. And she's like, oh, we have to go and get one of those, because everybody loves a sticker book. And then of course you have the food, which I mentioned earlier. It is a much smaller scale food festival. It's kind of like an additional offering. I wouldn't have enjoyed the festival any less if there hadn't been the food, because I like looking at all of the art, I like doing the treasure map, and I like listening to the presentation, but I do like food as well, so I went through. The only thing that I found quite disappointing from the selection, as somebody that doesn't eat something fishy, you know, shellfish or fish or basically anything that's ever lived in water or swims, I would say 75% of the savoury dishes were sort of fish based, and then another sort of 20% of the dishes were sort of mushroomy, nutty, truffly, flavours and ingredients that I am quite fussy about. I don't eat nuts and I don't like mushrooms at all. So I actually only had 2 savoury dishes, because those were the only 2 dishes that I could, savoury dishes that I could find. I was tempted by the charcuterie dish in Canada, but that was $14, and for a little selection dish, $14 is a lot. You can buy a quick service meal for $14, so I decided against that. I did pay $8 for the beef, and I thought it was worth every penny. Actually, that was my favourite thing. The beef was absolutely delicious. It was lovely. It fell apart as I was trying to cut it up, and then it just dissolved in my mouth. It was delicious. That was from near Germany. And then I got a pork tortilla. It was a soft corn tortilla base with some pork on it. It did have refried beans in it. I ate a little bit of the beans, but I didn't really like them, so I took them out and ate the rest. That was from Mexico, and that was absolutely scrumptious as well. And then I had two things that don't really count as food. I had the figment puzzle, which was 4 pieces of chocolate that fit together as a jigsaw with some icing. And this is icing that I don't tend to associate with what Americans call frosting. It was actual proper icing. It was icing sugar and water like we do in the UK on our fairy cakes. So it wasn't like fondant icing or frosting. It was just bog standard cheap UK icing with figment colours in it. I did try and paint it, but it didn't work. It was too sticky. So what I ended up doing was taking a piece of the chocolate, getting a tub of the icing and just dipping the chocolate and eating it. So you're basically eating pure sugar and fat, and it was delicious. The other thing I had was the Artist Palette Jumbo Cookie. Now the cookie was about this big in respect to the size of my head. They've cut a hole out of it to make it look like an artist palette, and then you get 3 blobs of icing on it. It is a standard Disney cookie. They do use Nestle Toll House cookies, so they are sweet, soft, and just delicious. So that in itself was yummy. I really enjoyed that. And then everything else I had was a dessert. I had the orange mousse with honey and peach syrup from Italy, and I was disappointed with that. The peaches kind of gave it a bit of flavour, but the actual mousse by itself was pretty bland. It didn't really taste of anything. And I had I think it was called a crystal star cake in China, which was like a rice flour dumpling type thing, which was covered in desiccated coconut and did have mango in the middle, which was really delicious, but there was just too much of the outer sort of dough. It was a bit too stodgy, and again, so that was a bit bland and tasteless, and it was also really heavy, so actually that was quite filling, and it did fill me up quite a lot. So yeah, that was everything that I ate. So I would avoid those 2 desserts, but I would definitely go for the 2 savoury dishes. The beef in particular was just amazing. Really, really love that. So overall, really enjoyed Festival of the Arts. I actually think I probably do prefer it to the Food and Wine Festival, because although Epcot was packed that day compared to how it had been on the Monday, it was about 50% of the crowd that you find at Food and Wine. The people were less rowdy, less intoxicated, and there was other stuff to do other than eating. I've never really been that interested in the Food and Wine seminars, whereas the sort of creativity, artistic presentations appealed to me more. And had I been there the following week, I probably would have done a lot more time in Epcot, spent more time looking at the seminars and actually deciding to go at a time when there was an interesting seminar on that I could go and watch, and making sure that I picked up at least one of the Broadway shows as well. So I would highly recommend Festival of the Arts. It's kind of like a baby flower and garden festival. It was a more flower and garden festival feel than a food and wine feel, I think. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and I'm not going to go next year, I don't think, but I certainly would consider going again in that time of year to go and see the Festival of the Arts. So if you're planning a trip, you're going in the next few weeks, then hopefully you will get to enjoy some of what Epcot has to offer, and let me know if you enjoy it.